We're live now. Hello, welcome. What kind of a Motorsport Report show would it be when we take a 1 week hiatus and then come back and then we're not muted? You know what I mean? Like it has to be it has to be set up that way. But what's up, everybody in the chat? Chris, Jamie, we've got Owen. What is up? Merry Christmas to everybody. It's how we started the show. When we were muted, I was saying Merry Christmas to everyone. I feel like that was a great way to start the show. Because it is Christmas Eve, so everybody that is hanging out with their families and chilling, congrats to you. It's been fun. I just got back from Louisiana for an entire week, spending time with my family, and we kind of did our Christmas a little bit early. So I hate that drive. We made the drive instead of flying, and it's rough. It's a rough one. So it's about 10 hours, and by the time we get back, we like to drive through the night. I was dead for like 2 days, so I just laid here. Then I'm like, okay. So I'm finally like getting my energy levels back regulated and everything, so we're good to go there. But I wanted to come to you guys to talk a little bit today about some of the stuff that's going on in the motorsport world. I know that we're coming off of what was the most historical landmark trial in all of racing history. And now that that's over, it seems like everything went so fucking quiet. That trial ended, and it just got really quiet. It was crickets. Everyone was like, okay, that's a lot of energy for a NASCAR off season. Let's just all simmer down. There's a couple of things that are happening that are coming up in the news sphere. There's a couple of things that I've been able to kind of track through the week. And we'll just go ahead and start off with the news that nobody really wanted to hear. And that is the tragic passing of Greg Biffle. Last week I was in Louisiana, and I had a text message from a good friend of mine, and had mentioned Biffle in the text, and he was just like, "Holy shit!" And I was like, "What happened? What did Greg Biffle do?" You know, because Greg's kind of a wild. He was kind of a wild guy. He was kind of a wild character. He was always really funny, always full of life, and I always loved seeing the stuff that he was doing. He was doing a lot with Cletus McFarland recently. And so he was, really teaching him what it takes to be a driver, what it takes to compete in NASCAR. And it was really cool to see that dynamic between them, like seeing sleeveless Greg Biffle. Like, he was just all out, just having a good time. But the man had such a career in NASCAR. And he was one of those guys that people talked about of how fierce of a competitor he was. So whenever I, originally heard that, I was just like, what did Greg Biffle do now, And then I look and see what happened. And, I'm a father and I'm a husband and I have a family, and my mind immediately it was very hard to process something like that. And I didn't really know how I was going to like talk about it. And like the only thing I could really say at the time was like I went, because I never really saw Greg's family. Like, I didn't really know Greg, I've known of Greg Biffle just like a lot of us here have, in the past. And so I just wanted to put something out there just to let people see, this is Greg Biffle. This is his family, because I myself saw it. And not only that, but I mean, the things that he did outside of NASCAR when he retired, like, the biggest story that I remember, and I know a lot of us probably remember, is when Hurricane Helene hit, and he got a hold of Elon Musk to bring all those Starlink internet routers there for people to have internet access and to be able to talk. And that really showed me the kind of man that he was and the character that he had outside of the garage. Because I was younger, going through the years when he was competing, and he wasn't always one of the drivers that I paid a ton of attention to. And I'm not going to lie about that or be dishonest, but going back and just kind of looking over his career and seeing what happened, it just puts a lot in perspective, especially around the holidays, and it just makes you really remember, like, take that time to spend as much time with your family this holiday season, and it really kind of made me look at things in a different light, and we get so caught up in our day-to-day lives and the things that we're doing that sometimes we can forget those little things that we may take for granted here and there. So it was a big thing that really helped me to kind of put things in perspective. So I just wanted to start this show off by saying that, and I wasn't going to go too deep into it because I know it's been a big grieving process for a lot of people. But, rest in peace to Greg and to his family, and, be with his extended family through the holidays, and for all the fans of Greg Biffle out there, and for everyone that he had an impact on in their lives. It's a big thing. So I just wanted to start the show off by saying that. And now we are going to open up the hotline. So the number to call, 980-317-8717. If you have anything that you want to talk about today on this Christmas Eve episode of Motorsport Report, feel free to give that line a call. I'm going to be going through a couple of other news topics that I've just kind of been able to bookmark. Like I said, I've been on the road this past week. I've been spending a lot of time with my family back home in Louisiana, so I was a little bit out of the loop. So I was hoping that when we went live today, maybe there are some things that I may have looked over or missed that you guys can call in. So as we go through some of these news pieces and these things that have been surfacing, we will be able to kind of tell, and I'll be able to know, and you'll be able to know. You call me, let me know if something gets missed. But last week, or the week before last, I did an emergency episode of the Motorsport Report, and that was on the day of the settlement. So the day that the trial settled, which was now 2 weeks ago, I went live for about an hour, just kind of talked a little bit about everything that happened in terms of what the settlement entailed. And now we're getting ready to look into a whole new era of NASCAR going into 2026, with the Cup Series specifically, where these team owners now are going to have a lot more flexibility in their ability to kind of, create new partnerships, create some meaningful things that are going to be able to transpire through the rest of the year, and those permanent charters are going to be able to give them that. I haven't heard anything from NASCAR leadership. I know there's a lot of questions out there surfacing right now. What's going to happen to Steve Phelps? What's going to happen to Steve O'Donnell? And if you go back and watch the episode that we did 2 weeks ago, I kind of gave you a little bit of, and especially the emergency episode of Motorsport Report, I kind of gave you a little bit of insight of what I think will most likely happen. And that is, just to summarize, I do think that we see Steve Phelps step aside. And if we don't, I think that that's going to cause a lot of friction in the NASCAR world. As far as O'Donnell goes, I don't know. And I really don't have anything really to say about it. The whole thing was a shit show, if we're being honest. And I think we've all seen that. Denny's been pretty quiet since then. I know that he had a post that he put out on December the 16th where Larry Mack was talking about, the how many days it was till Daytona. And Denny says, "Good morning. Now that the case is settled and the evidence is out, will you or anyone on Channel 90 be issuing an apology for what you all said about 2311 FRM when the lawsuit was filed?" So a little bit of pettiness from Denny. And look, if you keep up with like pop culture and things that are going on right now, it's a weird theme that's happening with like what's going on in NASCAR. The same kind of thing in its own way. 50 Cent, basically, if you're a rap fan like I was growing up and I am now, 50 Cent put a documentary out on Puff Daddy where it's got some crazy shit in there. So if you just something to watch through the holidays, with their limited motorsport stuff going on, check out Sean Combs' The Reckoning on Netflix. That is that guy, I don't even know. 50 Cent doing what he did, exposing this man's entire life and the evil shit that he did is nuts. So we have that happening. Of course, the Epstein files are out. There's exposure there. And in NASCAR, we have exposing happening on the level, but now it's settled, so it's all good. So it was just, in my mind, it was so weird that like those things were happening around the same time, and how they all kind of were showcasing this new revolution of truth and bringing truth to more people. And I think that that's a great thing for this era that we're getting ready to head in, because a lot's changing in the world right now. So it all can be shrunk down as well to something as simple as NASCAR in the grand scheme of things, a sport that we all love and that we care about. So I think it's really cool. And I'm going to catch up a little bit in the chat here. Mealy Kamaka. I'm going to fuck that up, dude. I'm going to be honest. Hawaiian for Merry Christmas. All right. I probably said that completely wrong, but that's badass to know. So now I know how to say Merry Christmas in Hawaiian. Owen says, Doug Bowles behind Brick showing why he's the best in the business. Indy new officiating was the last time, too. Yeah, that's some big stuff going on in IndyCar. We'll talk a little bit about that. I know that some of you guys wanted me to go into a little bit of the IndyCar officiating, the new officiating, group that's going to be coming in for 2026. Ray Evernham's a part of that. I think that's a great move. And there's a lot of cool things that IndyCar is getting ready to implement as we move in to 2026. The one thing that I did say on the last episode of Motorsport Report that I didn't really like was how this whole FIA thing is coming out, and they're kind of framing IndyCar as a feeder series for F1. And I have been very vocal about that since day one coming into IndyCar. I do not think IndyCar should be labeled as a feeder series, and I do not see it as a feeder series. And I will stand and die on that hill until the day I die. It's very simple. Like, IndyCar is its own thing, and it should be its own thing, and I don't think it should be compared to F1, and I don't think it should be compared to NASCAR. And I think that as long as everybody in that building and a part of that organization, doesn't really speak up to that or say anything about that, then it's going to just fall into this category, and it's just not where you want to be. I mean, the Indy Next series is the feeder series for the IndyCar series, for the NTT IndyCar series. And that should be the extent of it. Just like Xfinity and trucks are feeder series for NASCAR. You know, they're all in this entity thing, but I just don't like it. And I'm not going to lie about it. And I'm not going to try to see it any other way than I can. I mean, I've tried to see it other ways. I just don't think that is the way to look at it. But we've got our first caller coming in now, so I'm gonna put the headphones on. We'll see what's going down. Motorsport Report, you are live.
Hey Chase, this is Jamie from Lake Norman, North Carolina.
What is up, Jamie? Merry Christmas to you, brother. How we doing?
Merry Christmas to you, sir. I'm doing pretty good. I just called in to say I haven't heard anything about this, so anything I would say would be pure speculation, which I wouldn't do. But a question instead of something, just saying something. Do you ever wonder why, despite Judge Bell ordering Roger Penske and Rick Hendrick to testify in the case, and they did not because they settled? Do you think they settled to prevent, because Rick Hendrick and or Roger Penske was getting on NASCAR and saying, I don't want to testify, you need to settle this? Do you think that had anything to do with it?
I don't think that you're completely maybe off. I mean, nobody will really ever know unless we were in the room, right? But the one thing that I will say is I think it was a mixture of a lot of different things. So I think that could have definitely had something to do with it. But I also think, too, like the timing of the Johnny Morris message, right? And I came out and I think that the timing of that with all the pressure, they already had bad optics, right, going into the settlement. And everyone was really starting, the public opinion was already completely shifted, I believe, to the teams and to Michael Jordan. The jury was getting antsy every time that any of the NASCAR people were speaking in the court. It just wasn't looking good for them. So I think when the Johnny Morris message came out, knowing that Rick Hendrick and Penske were possibly going to have to be called to the stand, they could have very well been putting pressure to not do that. But I think the Johnny Morris message, the sentiment of the public opinion, and possibly that, I think that all of that mixed together, they finally just had to realize, like, we are fighting a losing battle and there's nothing good that's going to come from this. And I feel like what they settled on was something that they probably already discussed way back in the past of exactly what they wanted, and NASCAR just wasn't willing to give that to them. And so I think that the reason it all came together so fast is because they just went back and agreed on something that they had already proposed to them in the past, which was going with these evergreen charters and just trying to figure that out, the best way that they could moving forward. So I don't think you're completely off base, but I think it was a mixture of a lot of other things as well, Jamie.
I think, just real quick, I want to say, I think also that NASCAR owners and management, president, commissioner, all realize that they don't want to cross that threshold to make or trying to make Michael Jordan look like an evil villain, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Because the public won't go for it.
Well, I don't think, I think it's going to be very hard to make Michael Jordan look like an evil villain. There were definitely people that tried, and I noticed a lot on the internet. There were always like one or two accounts that would be.
I thought Mike Joy was one of them.
Yeah. Well, that possibly, but like I really did not credit, and I still don't, because I mean it even goes into what Denny was saying. Like Denny was being a little petty, and he got underneath Larry Mack's quote was like, "Are you going to issue an apology?" I think that the big thing was, a lot of the NASCAR employees, I never really took much of what they had to say to heart, because I just realized, like, they're getting paid by NASCAR. Why would they go against anything that they said? And I don't. I just don't I don't hold them accountable, because at the end of the day, like, if they're just doing their job and that's the entity they work for, I mean, they're going to defend the entity that they work for. Now, whether that was right or wrong, they're going to have to deal with that now, and I think that I wanted to just make sure that a lot of people knew that, because I feel like a lot of people didn't really see it that way, because they're just so used to listening to XM radio. They're so used to listening to these opinions, and all the drivers come there. So that's where a lot of NASCAR fans want to go get their stuff. But when you really put it into perspective and realize, oh, that is a NASCAR-owned media outlet. That
entity,
is, yeah, that's something they control. I don't think a lot of people saw it that way, and I was surprised by that. But at the end of the day, you just realize, like, you don't really know until you know. So it was good to be able to kind of like speak to that and talk to that, because I do think it woke a lot of people up, and it made a lot of people realize, like, oh shit, yeah, like we've got to like really be careful of like that, of like trying to get like a real view of what's happening around us. You got to really like look at like who you can trust, and that's why I always say, like, 9 times out of 10 independent sources are always going to be great. But you also had a lot of other media outlets coming out and talking about how they've never really talked about their actual opinion, and that's because you have to go through NASCAR to get credentials to go to races. So it became this big thing to where, like, when you're an entity like NASCAR or whatever, and I hope that this changes going forward in the future, like, there's people that cover the NFL and the NBA that talk shit about it all the time, but does that mean that the NFL and the NBA are going to bar them out? Like, no, they're a part of media, they're covering it, and there's like a level of integrity that you got to keep there. For people that are trying to do it.
Doesn't work for NASCAR, right?
No, Bob Pockrass works for Fox. He works for Fox Sports.
Michael Jordan asked him if he worked for NASCAR.
Yeah, I think he was messing with him, because he was just there all the time. And I mean, he does cover NASCAR, and a lot of these people cover NASCAR. But if you go look, like, Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi did a great job covering everything with the lawsuit. And if you go look at Jeff's recent piece that he posted on The Athletic, like, he basically says it's time for Jim France to step aside, and it's time for Ben Kennedy to take over. And that's a pretty bold thing for someone like Jeff to say, in which I commended him for. And so as long as these reporters can get to this level where we're like, you know what, we're not going to be afraid to really voice our opinions, because journalism is about the doing the work.
Independent.
Exactly. Understanding the story, doing the work, and seeing it from an unbiased view. Like, that's what journalism and media are supposed to be. And so every time, like, what I do, I try to take in all the facts. I try to take in everything that I see, and I try to give the clearest picture of what's happening, whether it's something I agree with or not. Now, there are little things we'll talk about here and there where, like, would I like to see full season points? Of course. Am I going to be mad if I don't? Am I going to stop watching? No, I'm not. Like, it's just because, like, that's an opinion.
And you don't get paid by the people you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's the separator, right? Like, Bob Pockrass works for Fox. Jordan and Jeff work for The Athletic, which is a New York Times, sports site. And there's a lot of other independent journalists that are out there that work for different independent media outlets. But there are the people that write. If you go on NASCAR.com and you look at those articles, you'll see names of what's written for them. Those are people that write and cover media for NASCAR. So it's just like you have to just kind of do your due diligence to understand, like, what you're reading, who's writing it, and who they represent. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think a lot of people just weren't seeing that, and I'm glad that they do now.
I think the reason Jordan said that is because the optics of day one at the trial. I'm not exactly sure when he said that, but the optics of the trial with Bob Pockrass almost locked in arms with NASCAR employees with the television station quality television camera and equipment, and they arrived together.
Yeah.
And it was after France and Bill and Helton.
Yeah. So I mean, they and
it was the optics of how he arrived, with NASCAR camera crew.
Yeah.
And they allegedly didn't. None of them knew that Helton and Jim France already arrived and went in the courthouse.
Yeah, and a lot of those guys were getting there extra early too. That was another thing. I talked to some of the guys that were there. Yeah, so it's just like sometimes optically it can look like that, but yeah, maybe that day that's what was going on. But no, I know Bob very well. He's very unbiased. The fact that Bob was putting out all of those documents before the court started, I mean, he was the one that was digging and putting all this information out. If there is one guy that I trust in NASCAR media, is Bob Pockrass, because he is doing his due diligence to provide the facts and present them to people in an unbiased way. Because if he worked for NASCAR, him putting that stuff, he would have never put all those documents out if he specifically worked for NASCAR.
Yeah, we don't know. He could have been trying to land a exclusive interview with one of them guys.
Absolutely, he is just a very. He sticks to his principles, man, on stuff. So I've got a lot of respect for Bob and always have.
He's a very nice person, and he was very not high up, like acting like he was better than anybody. He was really down to earth and talked to little people like myself and didn't look down on me or talk down on me. And it was really nice.
Yeah, that's what makes him a legend, man. That's why we love Bobby P. Shout out to him.
Oh, I appreciate it. I'm going to keep watching, and thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for calling in, Jamie. We appreciate it. That was Jamie from Lake Norman. Great guy, been calling in. Thanks for calling the show. Catching up in the comments here a little bit. Jamie also said, I'm not a psychic nor have inside information, but I do sense that we have seen the last stage caution in the end of stages in cup races. That would be nice. Owen says, I do think giving some FIA advisement for officiating gives an extra level of legitimacy for foreign investment. And that right there, I agree with when we're talking about the IndyCar situation, about the FIA points that got released a couple weeks ago. I'll say that there are pros and cons to it all, right? I just don't like the way that they wrote about it. They wrote it as like the FIA. It's always like they're trying to take these little stabs at IndyCar. And so I don't know. I feel like somebody's got to just stand up and say something. But then again, maybe nobody wants anything to be said about it, and maybe everybody's comfortable with that. And if that's the case, then I just see it differently than everybody else, and that's just how it goes. So I did just want to kind of like reiterate that and put that back out. But Merry Christmas, Authorized Jay. Welcome to the chat. A couple of other things that did come out, though, that we'll get into. So we talked a little bit about just kind of wrapping up some of the trial, what we're moving into now. But the stage cautions, many races inside the race screw over the flow. They do. And I think that that's a great place to move into next, because that's what the title of this show is how the playoff debate has now resurfaced. So now that everyone is done talking about the trial, we don't have a trial anymore. Everything is settled. We're moving on. Everyone's been kind of quiet, going into the off season now, and that was to be expected, right? Like everyone kind of knew. Like I felt like once this was done, that we were easily going to be able to kind of rest. You know what I mean? And that's what a lot of people have done. However, Kenny Wallace recently had a interview with Chris Rice from Colleague Racing. And I love Chris to death. I think Chris is a great guy. And a lot of people jumped on this man for what he had to say. So I'm going to switch us over to Browser View real quick, and we're just going to take a listen to this clip from the latest Kenny conversation where they were discussing the new NASCAR points playoff system. So let's move over and do that.
Why have they not given us the new points champ?
We're just going to make it big. Here we go.
The new points championship format yet? What do you know?
I know a lot more than you think.
No, that's why I'm asking you. You're down there. I'm in St. Louis, but are they just waiting For the
it got
air
put on the
clear.
back burner.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. It got put on the back burner, and I talked to Mark Martin a lot, believe it or not. You're going to like it. You will like it. It's not exactly what everybody's posting about. Like, I don't think. They hadn't made the final decision the last time I was involved. We need an adjustment. Do we need an overhaul? No, but we need an adjustment. I enjoy going back to Homestead, but we don't need one race to make the difference.
I agree.
Right? Because we know going to Homestead, if Kyle Larson's in the Final Four, who the heck you think's going to win?
Yeah.
If Tyler Reddick's in the Final Four, who the heck you think's going to have a shot? Like, come on. So they recognize that. The fans have been vocal. Kenny Wallace is a big advocate of this. I've watched so many times. Kenny, change the direction of the lawsuit by saying X. And I'm like, geez, that's good. We've listened as a sport, and it's going to be great. What I do know is I feel like 75% of the people are going to love it. 10% are going to be, okay, right? And that's going to leave 15% of the people that's going to hate it. So with that being said, the traditional way of doing points would be tough to do in this era because we are looking towards a younger group of people, right? So that's what we got to think about. Me and you, man, I go back and watch them old races on Tubi, and like, dude, it might be one car on the lead lap, and somebody's winning the point series by 487 points. Like, I mean, that ain't exciting to the young guy or the young woman. So we got to make it exciting. And our attention spans, my social media guy says, remember, Chris, 30 seconds long, not 4 hours, 30 seconds. So yes, sir.
Okay. So I hear everything that's being said, right? I hear Chris's argument. I think it's wrong, but I hear it. Okay. He just said, my social media guy says 30 seconds, not an hour. Okay, yeah, when you're making content for social media, when you're making reels and TikToks and videos, yeah, you want to keep it short and sweet, and that's what because the low attention span thing is very real on social media. But when you're doing a race isn't supposed to be a fucking TikTok. A race isn't supposed to be a reel. A race is supposed to be competition. And the argument that he does make, and I did see someone comment on this in here too, the argument that he makes about the younger demographic, right? I think that that's kind of a regurgitation from like what some other people have said. Like, there's been some things that came out with F1 where they're like, we got to get the attention spans right. Do you have to get the attention spans right? Because you still have good viewership. Yeah, maybe you're not like NFL numbers anymore, but you still have decent viewership. The thing is that people, especially race fans, they want to watch a sport. They don't want to watch an entertainment series. There are people that like to watch entertainment, and those are the people that usually like to watch wrestling. Okay? And I'm not trying to shit on WWE or anything like that. There are people that love it, and that's great. I never really got into it big, but what I will say is, like, there's a difference between sports and entertainment, and that line has just been blurred for the last few years. So to say that like the reason you're not going to like try to make legitimate competition is because of attention span, I think is just absurd. I don't think that I mean, I see where you're coming from, I guess, but I feel like you're coming from the wrong place. And I feel like, I think a lot of people are wore out on this conversation is what's happening. So like someone like Chris, it's like you can kind of tell he's just like, everyone's kind of done fucking talking about this. Let me just try to make the best fucking point that I can and be done. Now, that there's some very headstrong people that believe in full season points. I'm one of them, and I'm not going to hold back on that, but I'm also not going to just throw it all away if they don't give it. Motorsport Report, you're live.
Hey, it's Wyatt again with Front Stretch.
Wyatt, what's up, man? We're talking about Chris Rice and Kenny Wallace's recent conversation where Chris Rice said that the reason we don't need to go back to full season points is attention span.
Yeah, I tuned in and listened in, man. I think, like, personally for me, I mean, we're all ready to see what this new format is. We know, according to Bob, that we're going to get it in January, of course. But and I do. While I'm with you in this. Like I don't agree with where Chris Rice is on it. I think we all don't know really where it is now, but I like what you're saying though with just the attention span deals. Like, well, like we're all sat here invested watching 400, 500 mile, however long race that takes 2-3 hours of our day on Sunday, and with all the other series, if you're watching like all weekend long, it takes about 9 hours of our day watching all these racing, and we're not. I'm personally not of the mindset of, oh, this needs to be entertaining. We need to have a thrill and finish. I want the most dominant guy out there every Sunday to get a deserving title. I don't care to see how the path or whatever like little like tricks that NASCAR wants to throw into the point system the driver's way to make it some kind of gimmick. We've been tired of the gimmicks. We've been people like Mark Martin, people and a lot of people in the NASCAR industry have been preaching that we're tired of gimmicks. You're right. This ain't wrestling. I didn't sign. I mean, I got back in the WWE now, but
yeah, they call them male soap operas. That's what someone said to me the other day.
Male soap
I was
operas,
like, I guess. I was like, I don't know. That's like, funny.
I mean, it's just like personally for me, the 10 race chase makes sense. I was raised on it. I get it. It's not too crazy of a gimmick. It's just reset and go, and you have 10 race to control your destiny there. I get it there. We're never going to go back to a full season points. I understand that too. I mean,
I wouldn't say never.
NASCAR wants to pull the ultimate rug.
I wouldn't say never. If they do go, like I do feel like more than likely it will be some type of playoff format again. But if they really do see the mega hit that some people are saying, like I just don't think they're believing it. Like I think what I've realized is until they see a major drop off, they're not even going to entertain it. But by the time that happens, it's going to be too late, and I don't know how long it's going to take for people to actually come back, because unless there's like the people that come back that like I told you so, and maybe it won't be like that. But I do feel like now at this point we've seen enough to know that what it's going to take is literally like to see the drop. You're going to have to see the fall off in the dip for them to like say, okay, well, we've done all these different options. This is all we can try now is to go back to full season points. But I'm just afraid it might be too late. Like if they're going to do it, I feel like this is the time. Like this is the time to make that change, because it would create, because of this lawsuit and a change like that, it would create this revival around NASCAR. It really would. And I feel like this is like if you miss this boat, like this is the thing that just infuriates me with different sporting organizations, especially in racing. It's like you have these windows. And I don't know, like I can only speak from my perspective, but like I feel like you have to have the ability to see the window and not be blinded by other shit and not be blinded by operations and all these other things that you do get caught up in. If you don't see the public trend window of like when to make a move or when to make a change, you're going to spend years trying to recover until another one of those windows present themselves. And I just feel like that this is that window where you have the perfect storm, because that's what happened in the 90s. You had the perfect storm. It became popular, IndyCar split, you got Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt. All these little pieces came together perfectly. And we're in that right now with this new reform of the Cup Series. Now you throw in a new point season championship with that. That's two little pieces you can gel together, and that pushes you right through that window, and that will create fan sentiment. That'll make the older fans happier, and people are just going to look at it and be like, oh, this is how F1 is. This is how IndyCar is. So now NASCAR's like that too. That's badass. I like the way a stock car looks more than I like an open wheel car. So that's what I choose to watch. It's
Yeah.
those things, and I just feel like sometimes people let the wrong decisions or the wrong problems enter their mind, and they try to fix, problem B and C when they need to focus on problem A.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to say again, I've highlighted on here before too that I think also all the venues that NASCAR has returned to the last couple of years. They're returning to Chicagoland. They've returned to North Wilkesboro, and they're still doing new ideas in that department, like taking the Truck Series and having them in St. Petersburg with IndyCar, having IndyCar come to Phoenix for that first day, kind of giving that a little bit more life there. San Diego, of course, this year, and racing on a freaking military base. Like, tell me 10 years ago they were going to do that
right
in Southern California. And now, obviously, Auto Club being lost is kind of a deal, but they keep saying they're trying to do something out there. I'd like to see more progress in that, but money is money in the sport nowadays, as the lawsuit has showed us.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, you're absolutely right. Like, with where the sport is now, if there's going to be any time to change, it's going to be now. And if they miss it and they mess this up, I don't know where the sport's going to go. And like, we dodged a major bullet with the settlement.
Yeah.
The settlement was amazing. I wish I could have called in when that all happened, but that was amazing. Love to see that for the sport. And now they can truly start to grow. If we can get this step right, everything else can iron out, and we can move forward, and NASCAR can move forward as a sport. Because right now, again, like, you see how IndyCar's moving with Fox, having nationally televised events, and a partner, actual partner, business partner, and a TV partner at the same time, and then Formula One gaining a lot of fan base out here in America, mainly for the Drive to Survive fan base, which, again, and it was a good championship battle too. Don't get me wrong too, with Verstappen and Norris, but
Yeah.
But NASCAR can absolutely like just do well with this, with the next change that they got coming for the point system, and I pray that they don't mess this up for the future, and I hope it changes for the good.
Yep. Same
Man,
here.
I wanted to drop in and talk about that. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas too, my buddy.
Yeah, same to you, brother. I appreciate you calling in for that, man. I hope you have a good one with the fam and everything else. I know we're as soon as we wrap up here, the rest of the day is making cookies and watching Christmas movies with the kid and the wife. So, yeah.
Yeah. Today, I'm a terrible procrastinator, so I'm doing last minute Christmas shopping.
Oh shit!
With family.
What's that? What's that like?
Yeah.
I'm fortunate that I have a wife that handles a lot of that stuff. She'll start Christmas shopping back in like early November, dude.
Goodness.
So yeah,
I could never. I always am just like, it's the 24th.
Either.
What do I need to grab?
Yeah.
And me moving to Indiana, that'll probably be pushed up by a week to get it out to the post office by then. But yeah, this is the last Christmas down here in Texas. It's 80 degrees and feeling nice, and it's gonna be cold in hell when I get up there, though. So.
Oh yeah, get ready to get your jackets on. I was actually so like just mind blown because we left North Carolina. It's cold. Get down there. It's hot as shit, and I'm like, I do not miss this. Get back up here now. Today it's Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. It's gonna be the warmest days of December. I was like, damn, we brought the warm weather back with us from Louisiana. So it's warm out here in Charlotte right now. But yeah, brother.
At least it's not 90, 100 degree weather.
You're right.
Will give it that. I'm happy about that.
You're very right about that. Well, Wyatt, I do hope that we see something that would be beneficial out of this, and I do appreciate you calling in as always, big dog.
I got one more thing. How was the award ceremony? You look like you're having fun out there. It's showing off and having a good time,
man. I will say, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, the Grand National Bash, Tommy Joe Martin's put it together to honor a lot of the Xfinity and Truck Series teams that really don't get a lot of recognition at your normal NASCAR award show. I thought it was fantastic. It was the first award show I ever went to, by the way. They called me a couple of days before to see if we would live stream it. So it was kind of a work in progress, but I know that we'll probably be back back next year doing the same thing, and we're going to try to do it a little bit differently. But it was great getting to work with everyone. Always great to get to hang out with Brad Perez, one of my good buddies that races in NASCAR from time to time. So we had fun. We got to meet, and I got to, obviously a lot of people that watch the show know I haven't been that deep in the Xfinity and Truck Series, so it was kind of a learning night for me. I let Brad handle a lot of the questions and things like that, but going into 2026, I'm going to be paying a lot more attention to the O'Reilly Series as well as the Cup Series. So it's going to be fun, and I know that year 2 is going to be even better. But yeah, Larry Mack was out there. I know we've talked a lot about Larry, and as soon as I pull as soon as I pull up, he pulls up by me in his Suburban, and he gets out, and I'm looking at him, and he looks at me, and I'm like, "Hey, Larry." And he's like, "Hey," I'm like, "You haven't met me." I was like, "I'm Chase. It's nice to meet you." And I shook his hand, and like I said, I have a lot of respect for the guy. I just call it like I see it here on the show, and I would love to have Larry on this program one day. I think that would be great to talk to him. He's gonna know that I want some real raw, Larry Mack talk. I'm not gonna want more of the XM NASCAR Larry Mack. I want real talk Larry Mack. So whether we get that or not, I don't know. And maybe that is real talk Larry Mack. And if that is, that's fine too. So I don't know. But yeah, I have a lot of respect for Larry. I always will. I think he was cool. So I got to meet him and got to meet a lot of the truck drivers, the Xfinity drivers. They had a lot of great awards there. Caitlin Vincey hosted it. So getting to sit in that room with all those drivers and teams was it was really different. And I didn't have a hat on either. So a lot of people were like, "Holy shit, Chase's hat's like the fountain of youth." I just kept telling everybody, like Ryan Truex came up to me and was like, "Dude, what the fuck happened to your hair?" And I'm just like, "You're the only person that's asked me." I was like, "Are you worried about yours?" So it's but Ryan Truex has some great fucking hair, dude. But yeah, I went in there with the lid off, man, and I was upset because I've wore hats since I was like 5 years old. Like that's just a part of like my being. So like I was already kind of upset. I was like, well, I'm gonna not wear a hat. Sheldon Creed comes in there with a fucking hat on and his blazer, and I'm like, God damn it, dude, I could have wore it because I got my suit set up to like match with like my corduroy hat, and it looked badass. So like after the event, I threw the hat on. It looked real good with the blazer and the khakis and the nice loafers. So I was trying to stunt my own way, but it was a great time. Next year hopefully we'll be able to stream the entire award ceremony for everyone to watch.
Oh yeah, that would be so good. You killed it. I just looked. I'm like, there's no way he went there without no dang hat. I was like,
did.
There's no
it
way.
was
it's
very
like
different.
A big piece of yourself there.
It is,
I was
dude.
like, you and old Walter White and Joey Logano this weekend. I was like, this like my head was just spinning looking at both things. I was like, oh my goodness. I still can't believe him and I mean you too, because we had talked about it before, but when Joey did that, I was like, oh my goodness,
Lord, dude.
And now Joey looks like turned into freaking Walter White. We need him to dress as Walter White next Halloween.
I think he's
track.
coming. I think he's coming with that energy. I put a post out on Sunday. He was at the Panthers game, dude. He had like a leather jacket on and shit with his kid, and he was like making this weird face, and I was like, who the fuck is that? Who is that guy? That's not Joey Logano. That looks nothing like his whole personality changed when his hair went away. He became a new person. So I might like Joey Logano now. I don't know. I feel like this version of Joey Logano is like progress,
Evil Joey Logano can't hurt you.
Yeah, dude. It's like embrace it all the way, dude. Like that's what I'm hoping to see is like a true just asshole Joey Logano coming out. Like it would really pick up on the vibes of like when Kurt Busch drove that car and then he goes. So it's like the 22 just like makes you become an asshole over time. Like that's what I think happens when in NASCAR in the 22.
Team Penske makes you become an asshole.
If you drive that car, for sure. Yeah. That's the one.
Oh yeah. Well, hey, thanks again for having me on again, and dude, I can't thank you enough for everything. Merry Christmas to you. I hope you and your family have a blessed freaking time all holiday season, and again, pray for me for that move. It's coming up right before New Year's. I'll be up there in Indiana. So
well, safe travels, my man, and Merry Christmas to you. Thanks so much for calling in.
Yeah, no problem, man. Take care.
All right, that was Wyatt from Front Stretch. Y'all go check out Wyatt. He's got a lot of great stuff, getting ready to move up to Indiana to cover the IndyCar series a little bit more full-time. Catching up in the chat here a little bit. See where Prime by 29 exactly. It's a sports event, not TikTok, and that's true. So I just feel like that argument is bleh. It's out the way. Owen says, I think NASCAR is also so set on going back to the fan base they had 30 years ago. Not saying to forget them, but race fans as a whole are different now than they were back then. Agreed. So it's like being able to be understanding of the times that we are in. There's a lot more than just a point system that made people like F1, but because that was the point system when they all started liking it and watching it, you automatically adjust to that. And that's the thing. So it doesn't really matter what makes people like the racing product, but they're going to adapt to whatever that is. And it's a very clear, straightforward, legitimate format. And so it's easy for people to be like, oh, okay, I see how that works. You know what I mean? So like with this, it's very different. But when we talked to Tommy Joe Martins, if you haven't gotten to yet, go check out that interview. I did post it as a standalone video for anyone that doesn't just want to have to skim through the last Motorsport Report we did. But whenever I had that on and had him on, like he made a couple of comments. We're talking about like, a lot of NASCAR fans, they like wrecks and action and things. There was an era of that, but I feel like that was way more focused around like Dega and Daytona, man. Like super speedway racing is something that they knew. So it's like because those were the two races that got the most viewership possibly over so many years, like people thought they had to try to like recreate that throughout. Or find ways to like force and manufacture that, which was just chaos. And, it kind of takes away from it. Like you're not going to be able to get those kind of numbers for every race and every show, unless like the fan base understands that they're watching it for other reasons than chaos. But when you try to manufacture it to create that chaos, then that's all that a fan base is going to be able to look at is chaos. And then you have a lot of fans that have been around for a long time that feel lost and they're not really sure what they're watching anymore. And so I put a post out that where I'm going with all this was, if you're going to double down on playoffs and you're going to say, we know a lot of people want us to go back to full season points. A bunch of people have come out publicly and say they think that would be the way to do it, and they're still not going to listen to it after all this has happened. Maybe NASCAR's like ego is just bruised and they still feel like, okay, well, they, the team's got what they wanted, but we still need to hold some control and make it the way we want it on this other end. I know a lot of people have talked about the 10-race chase. That's fine. That's whatever. And we'll get back to talking about this after this call. Motorsport Report, what's your name? Where you calling from?
This is DJ from Wisconsin.
What is up, DJ? How you been, brother? Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you, too. Say, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the comments that came out of that conversation between Kenny Wallace and Chris Rice.
Yeah.
There's something that isn't quite mathing with that whole thing. So a couple premises first, right? Chris Rice talks to Kenny and says, hey, there's going to be a change to the playoff system, and 75% of people are going to love it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. However, when you look at the Jeff Gluck and Mark Martin polls, those polls indicate that well over 50% of the respondents want to have a 36-race full-season championship format, right? So if you were to take those two pieces of information, you should deduce that, Chris Rice is saying that we're going to go back to that. However, he then said he didn't think it was possible for us to have a full-season point system in NASCAR in the present day, okay? So something isn't mathing here. Either Chris Rice is uninformed and he doesn't really know what fan sentiment is, and he's positing that 25% of the people out there aren't going to like it, meaning they aren't going to like the playoffs or they aren't going to like the championship. Something doesn't quite add up.
Yeah,
so
I see what you're saying.
I just wanted your thoughts on that, because if he's saying 75% of the people are going to like it, and over 50% of the people in those two polls are wanting 36 championship, something's not adding up there. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so in terms of that, the first thing that would come to my mind with you presenting that evidence, right, with these polls that have been put out, is that either A, he hasn't really looked at those polls, or B, he's just kind of making an analogy based on what he thinks. And so I think that, like, sometimes, you know how, like, people will be talking to you and they may, like, have an idea of a change and they just kind of spit some numbers out. I think that could be what happened. I think it could be as simple as he was just, like, kind of like making some numbers up in his head. And I'm not saying that he did that, because someone like you presenting it this way, like, you're kind of looking at it from, like, a raw data, real statistical standpoint of, like, making sure that those numbers are accurate. And I think sometimes people just kind of, like, throw guesstimations out, which in this case, for him to say that 75% of people were going to like it, and then we already know that there are percentage-based stuff from these polls that were taken, that's probably just like him just kind of making a guesstimation in my mind. That's what I'm thinking. Does that?
Do you think that he is out of touch with fan sentiment, and possibly the people running the sport are also out of touch with that fan sentiment?
I think it's more. I think it has more to do with, like, everyone that is in NASCAR is happy to be there and they're happy to compete at whatever is going on. And so I think 9 times out of 10, a lot of people that are already in the show maybe just don't want to rock the boat. And I think that makes a lot of sense, because, you know, if you're making money and you're happy just being able to race, you're happy being able to have a team, you're happy to be able to do these things, you probably just understand that, like, you know, because there's been so many conversations in the past where people have been like, oh, you're never going to make all the fans happy. And I believe that's true. You're never going to make everyone happy. So with that being the case, like, you kind of get to a point to where you kind of look at it like, well, whatever they give us is what they give us. And that's what we're going to do, because this is what we do for a living. And I think that's really where a lot of the minds are inside of the sport. Whether or not it's exactly what they would like to see or what they want, I think it's more just about they're happy to be in the show and they want to get out there and compete with whatever rule set that they have.
So when it comes to the sanctioning body, if they really care about the fans, why would they continue with a format that only 20% of the people in these polls want? Why do that?
That's the question I don't know how to answer, to be completely honest with you. Like, you know, there's a lot of things that we've kind of went over, and there's a lot of points that we went over, especially in the lawsuit, talking about a lot of the ego, right? Talking about a lot of the ego that people have that are running businesses or running corporations. Like, there's this aspect of control to it. And it's like, you know, if that is the case with the France family and things like that, then they may look at it more in terms of, you know, like, well, this is our thing, this is our show, and, like, if people like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. And that can be a dangerous place when you have a lot of fans that are really calling for something bigger. And you also have drivers that are vocal about it. And I don't think that – I think from the driver standpoint and the people that do want to see the full season points, it's like they're gonna run with whatever they got, because they're just happy to be there. And I feel like when you're in that situation, like, you're just happy to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself like that. But at the same time, it's like, you know, I feel like maybe they're looking at it from a standpoint of, like, business, where it's like, well, if we give everybody what they want here, then they're always going to expect us to give them what they want. And then, like, and maybe that's all it is. Maybe it's as simple as that, of them having that thought. Do I think that that's right in this situation? You know, I think that it would be smart to maybe just kind of scrap everything, like I was talking about, and not miss that window of opportunity where you can really give a fan base, and you can give some of the drivers that have talked about it a little bit more of what they want, and make a little bit more legitimacy inside of NASCAR. But from what we've seen through history, you know, that just hasn't been the case, and they've kind of juggled a lot of these things around.
Yeah, it's too bad. I mean, clearly what they're doing isn't working. If you look at the TV ratings going back to 2005, they're a fraction of what they were. And sure, some of that could be that, you know, Gen Z isn't big into car culture. Maybe that's a factor. But the way I see it is, if people are comparing NASCAR more to the WWE, where it's random and I don't want to use the word fake, But when it comes off like your champion is just kind of a random draw out of 4 guys that make it, and you only need to be good really in a handful of races a year to win, I don't know. It doesn't bring legitimacy. I think NASCAR under the weight of their own growth kind of imploded. They always say that they're for the fans, and they've been saying that for a really long time because the fans are the ones that made it the sport that it was in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
And I just really feel like if they don't start listening and start taking these data points seriously, it's just going to get worse. You were just talking about F1 and how F1 has this legitimate series that does their points the way that most other auto racing series do it, and that's by measuring it throughout the entirety of a season. I just feel like if they don't, they're going to start falling into that WWE category of entertainment and no longer sport.
Yeah.
So I'm concerned. Chris Rice's his statement that 75% of fans are going to love it, I just felt was way off base as soon as he said, well, we can't do full 36 points.
Never say never.
I don't know. Something wasn't adding up.
No, I hear you loud and clear, DJ, and I appreciate you calling in and bringing up those topics. And, yeah, like we're going to find out in January. I know that much. So January is supposed to be when we get this information, whether that be week 1, week 2, week 3. I can't imagine we would go more than 2 weeks into January without really knowing and it being revealed. But I think because of this lawsuit, everyone's just kind of being really quiet right now and trying to simmer down from, settling from all that and get these new things and these new practices in place for the next year. But yeah, I think it could be as simple as a guesstimation on a show where somebody was just kind of like saying things and wanting to kind of support the entity that they run in. So it maybe isn't always favorable to what we want to hear, but at the same time, like, I have to kind of just call it, for what it is and see it for what it is, and can't always be super mad about that. But I do sense the frustration in some of these conversations where people are just like, I'm so tired of talking about this. So it's like, it could all be so simple. It could all be so simple. It could be just as simple as just kind of going back to a very straightforward way of scoring. And I think that a lot of people would like that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time. Have yourself a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Same to you, brother. Thanks for calling. And that was our guy DJ calling in, catching up in the chat a little bit. Owen says Gen Z is big into car culture. They're just not impressed by a car just because it's fast. We've grown up watching 1,000 horsepower builds on YouTube since young. And I agree with that because I have seen so many meetups. There's so many people like for myself, like I was really big into like tuner car culture, and that was just because I grew up with the Fast and the Furious movies, and I stopped watching after the 4th one. I never watched any of the other Fast and Furious movies. Tokyo Drift was the legendary film. I love drift racing. I love drifting, so I'm always big into like JDMs, things like that, and that's where I see a lot of the car culture. You go down to any 7-Eleven, in the country, and it is a requirement by their corporation. They cannot kick people out of the parking lots at 7-Elevens because they actually want people to show up and have car meetups there. And I don't know if a lot of people knew that or not, but shout out to 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven gas stations all across the country, there is a policy in place that they cannot, like people that are working there cannot push out people that want to do car meetups in their parking lots. And that's because it's a company that's, I think they originated in Japan. So, like, a lot of people in Japan, they're big into car culture, JDM cars, drifting, all that stuff. I think that's a really cool thing. And I've seen a lot. If you've ever been rolling by, like, a 7-Eleven at, like, 10 o'clock at night, you'll see some tuner cars and shit just piled up there in those parking lots. So I thought that was something I found out not long ago, and I thought it was really cool. So I do agree that, like, there is car culture out there, but a lot of these younger kids now, they're buying these older cars. They're getting these cars that are like early 2000s, late 90s, and that's what they're kind of like tricking out. And I feel like that's where car culture is. For number one, that's really all that they can afford. I mean, shit, that's always what I can afford. I like old cars. I like shit that I can work on because let's be honest, new cars these days, they're no different than refrigerators and washing machines. They're all fucking appliances. And that's the way that I think that's a lot of it has to do with the way that the automotive industry is moving, where they're making these cars more electric, they're more applianced and comfort based. We've lost that touch of like consumer American muscle or consumer motorsport, I guess, when we look at our cars. Like you can remember like Monte Carlos used to have the Dale Earnhardt edition, the Tony Stewart edition, the Dale Jr. edition. You don't see shit like that anymore, really. And the only companies that are focusing on that, I feel like right now, Toyota, Ford, and Dodge now coming back into the mix. Like those three manufacturers right there, they're realizing, and they have realized, and we're going to see more coming out in the future. They're like, shit, people don't want cars to turn into these things. Now, there always will be people that maybe don't care so much about racing that do want that to happen. And they're like, whatever, like, you know, a car is just something to get me from A to B. But then there always are going to be those people. And I think that really is starting to resurge right now with a lot of the older cars that people are being able to buy off Facebook Marketplace and used. And then they're going and having their meetups and doing these things. So all that does still exist. That was a great point right there by Owen. Just wanted to kind of throw that up. And yeah, you guys can have these conversations at the Christmas table and debate over them a little bit. Some other news that came out this past week, then we've kind of talked about that. I just wanted to end this entire conversation about the playoffs, and I put this out. I put this post out the other day when I saw the Chris Rice thing, and you know, I'm not gonna lie, like I'm kind of like right there with everyone else, like where it's like I'm so wore out talking about it. It's like if you haven't seen the writing on the wall by now that people want full season points, and you're going to just continue trying to go for a playoff, like it's time to just make it what it is if that's the case. And this was my I guess proposal for if we're going to make it gimmicky, if we're going to make it playoffs. Oh, we dropped something. If we're going to make it gimmicky, if we're going to make it a playoff, then it needs to reflect that of other stick and ball sports. And so a lot of people, I didn't get a lot of likes on this by any means, but it wasn't my intention to. It was just like, here's the way you should do it if you're going to continue playoffs, and call it for what it is. So we'll swap over to the browser view. And I said, if NASCAR is going to continue playoffs in 2026, then it's time to stop trying to make it something other than what it actually is. Consistency doesn't matter anymore. Give us a bracket with head-to-head matchups, best of 3 each round, only 2 drivers compete for a championship. And I went in a little bit more about how that would work here. The first round is 16 drivers seeded by regular season points. So you go all based off of the regular season points up until it's playoff time. Highest seed versus lowest seed, you bracket those out. Drivers are paired head-to-head and must finish ahead of their matchup in 2 out of the 3 races, which are the rounds to advance. You'll have a round of 16, a round of 8, a round of 4, and the championship race, the final race, will only have 2 drivers competing for a championship, and whichever one of them finishes ahead of the other is the champion. No points or stages, simple. Do I want that to happen? Do I want that to be reality? No, I don't. But if you're going to do it that way, then make it what it is. Make it what it is. Make it like when the NFL starts their playoffs. Bracket it down. And people be like, what about the other cars on the track? They're just there. They're just there. They're just there. And that's it. And that's really all I had to say about it. You're going to do playoffs, do it that way. Make it what it is, for real. Every other car is just like an obstacle to get around for the playoff drivers. That's kind of how it is already right now. You know, if we're being honest. It's like, what's the point? So I'm just trying to clear it up. Full season would be way easier. If you're going to do playoffs, make it a fucking real playoff and just make it simple. The end. Don't even add points. They don't even need points. You finish ahead of the other guy. That's all you got to do. Get your bracket and win. Moving forward from there, some other news that did come out. Brad Keselowski went skiing. He broke his leg. He got a brand new robotic leg. He said he's bionic now. We'll get that pulled up. I had a post that was kind of showing him, and I'm glad he was okay. You never want to see Brad K having tough times like that, but it was good to see that everything was fine. I think the post came out. Where did I post it? I might not even bookmark it. Like I said, this past week was very off-putting. I was off social media a ton, and I didn't get to follow things as closely as I would have liked. But just going down my my home feed right now, switch us back over here. Here was the photos. So he says, life has a way of reminding you to slow down. I'm grateful for my family by my side and excitement, an excellent medical team, and the ability to take a few steps forward today focused on Daytona. Bonus, I'm now bionic, which I love that he used that terminology there. So I had to go under that post, and I just said, Brad at Daytona 2026. There he is. I did generate this image with AI. Some people could not believe it, but I'm pretty good at prompting. So that's Brad is the Terminator now because he has a metal rod in his leg, and there it is. So Brad is now the Terminator. He's going to have a very heavy leg at Daytona. Could potentially win Daytona. Could potentially get the 500. Who knows? Dave Chappelle had a new special come out. Y'all know I'm a big Dave Chappelle fan. If you haven't watched that on Netflix, go watch it. It's great. I'm a Saints fan as well. Here's the Joey Logano photo. Who is that? Who is that? Who is that? That's not Joey Logano. Who is that? I can't be the only one. Everybody was calling him Lex Luthor. Everybody was saying, oh, that's Lex Luthor. He really is. He's entering that age. Crazy shit, man. Pretty wild. Oh, I gave my mom some NOS this Christmas. Shout out to NOS Energy. You should give your mom some NOS this Christmas, by the way, because it's the gift that keeps you going. That's what I like to say. Go to your local gas station, get a NOS. It was my mom. She got NOS. So make sure you congratulate her for getting NOS for Christmas. Very important. Some other stuff that we can look through really quickly because it's now 2:07 p.m. I can already hear the family in there. They're getting ready for they're ready for Christmas festivities. We talked a little bit about IndyCar and how I feel about all that. Hardy's going to play with Joey Logano, which is pretty cool, I guess. And then, Patrick Staropoli will drive full-time in the number 48 for the team next season, which is the big machine team in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. That dude's a surgeon, by the way. I found that out yesterday. Had no clue. An eye surgeon will be competing in the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series in 2026. So that's some cool news. Also, Pato O'Ward flew on a helicopter with Jerry Jones and Jamie Little to look at the new Grand Prix of Arlington. That was a cool little promo that they dropped on Fox on NFL Sunday. Catherine Legg is working out her Indy 500 efforts, and she wants to do the double at Phoenix. So a new way to do the double now, which is going to be pretty cool, will be at Phoenix. So you'll have a way to do a double on an oval, which would be sick. So I do think that that's cool. Shout out. Other than that, Roger Penske, just an absolute dog. Got his Indianapolis sweatshirt on. Got a pool table in the house. That's a legend right there. Like that's like when I get old, dude. Like I wanna be like Raj. You know what I'm saying? Look at Raj, bro. Raj is a dog. That dude right there. That's a real OG, and I don't care what no one says. All right, that's Roger Christmas. Roger is the spirit of Christmas. Roger Penske, absolute dog. Love him to death. Pool table in the living room. What's not to love, dude? Just a king of kings in the racing series, in the racing world. Shout out to Roger. That's about it for today, though, guys. I mean, we've kind of went through some of the big topics, some of the big stories. I appreciate all the phone calls that have come in. A little bit shorter than usual, but that's so we can all get back and enjoy some time with our families. And I appreciate everybody for tuning in, for calling in. We will be back for another Motorsport Report in 2026. So I hope everyone has a great Christmas tomorrow. Hope everyone has a happy new year. And thanks so much for following along with me on this new way that we do our show. Live streaming, live calls. I'm loving it. Remember to keep telling everybody that you know about Motorsport Report, and you can follow me online everywhere at Garage Guy Chase. And don't forget to go pick up your NOS Energy at your local gas station and tell them Chase sent you. But that's going to be it for me. Enjoy the time, guys, and thanks again. I will see you all next year in 2026, and if anything happens between now and then, feel free to tag me online at Garage Guy Chase. I will be online and keeping up with things going on throughout the rest of 2025. Appreciate all the love. Appreciate everyone in the chat. And that's it for Motorsport Report for the year of 2025. It's motorsport news for you.